A woman is compared to a nair, a candle, and a man to the flame. Although the flame gives the candle light, it's the candle which holds the flame and gives it the material it needs to burn. The candle that Ish's pile does not stop giving light to her husband, to her home, and more so, does not lose the ability to be a source of illumination to others. One of the ideas represented by women lighting the Shabbos candle is that a woman has the incredible ability to illuminate other people's souls. In order for this to occur, she must not only radiate her own light, but she must recognize that everyone else is special in their own particular way. Ta'a Marquis of Sakura, she sees that her merchandise is good. Marion had this unique ability to see each person's special and unique qualities, and everybody felt that they shared a special relationship with her. Lo yichve b'layla meira, her light doesn't go out at night. Even at times which were challenging and dark, her candle didn't go out. She infused all of us with a tremendous bitachon and emunah, and gave us the strength to carry on in our own ways, even when she was struggling. On a personal note, I have a lot to say about Marion, but I'm not going to use the important time. But just to say that Marion taught me and helped me grow in my role as Rebbetzin here. And she's one of the people that I see as my own mentor, and I feel a very particular void with her loss. I want to thank Jackie and Michelle and Simon for first of all being here with us tonight, but even more so for sharing their special and wonderful mother with the Adass community over the years. Much of what Adass is today is in no small measure to what Marion brought to it, her creativity, her passion for people, and her huge vision. Thank you also to Ariane and Daniela for coming here tonight and allowing us to share your grandma with us. Thank you all to you for being here to tribute to who Marion was to each and everyone's lives. And thank you so much to Myra for hosting this special evening. I'd like to introduce Simon, Marion's son. Almost you over here know Simon. Very special person in his own right. Somebody who Marion had tremendous respect and admiration for. Simon lives in Beit Shemesh with Elisa and their lovely family. He has come here to share some very, very meaningful, personal, and important lessons for us to take with us. After Simon speaks, I'll then pass on to another couple of people who are going to share a few things with us, and then we'll open it up to anyone who has some personal tributes or personal recollections in their life about Marion. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebbetzin Lieberman, Marcia and Edward Adass, and the Ladies Guild, whoever and everyone who was involved in putting this together. So I'm looking around the room. You know, on the way here, I just drove past 4 Franklin Gardens, which I actually haven't been to 4 Franklin Gardens for probably close to 20 years. It's still exactly the same door and numbers, nothing's actually changed. And I'm looking around the room, and it's a bit like what I felt at the Hesped. You know, there's many people in the audience who've got impressions and stories and feelings about my mother, in some ways closer and more poignant than what I can share with you. And everyone has got their own perspective on my mum. And just to emphasise once again, I spoke at the Lavoya, and I felt very deflated immediately after speaking, because as I said then, and to repeat now, there's nothing that you can say in a short amount of time to try and summarise and encapsulate someone's life. You know, whatever I say now won't do my mum justice. It's not the point of what I'm speaking. There's no attempt to try and do justice to that. And there's no length of time where I could do that. But it's just my perspective on a few thoughts that I want to share with you. So what I was trying to do, and what the source sheet is, it's a combination between a share, so we can learn some Torah, and some thoughts reflections on what I've learned from my mother and to tie them all together. So I've been giving a lot of thought to lessons that I've learned from my mum that will stay with me forever, the legacy that she left behind. And what I was trying to, for the sake of this evening, and trying to make something concrete, trying to find a unifying theme, some common denominator that we can learn from and take with us to the Aliyah Neshama, the Schus for her Neshama. So the two things that I focused on at the Lavoya in the Hesped was her constant davening to Hashem. She was very public and constant, in especially the last year of her life, about her relationship with Hashem. And second of all, which I think everyone in the room will testify to, was the intimate relationship she made with people and touched people in a very deep and meaningful way. Opposite of superficial relationships, she made very deep and meaningful, intense relationships with people. And I think that there is a common denominator, as I said, a unifying theme with how she approached people and how she approached her relationship with Hashem. So I heard once the following moshel, the following parable, which I think puts this into perspective. So there's a lady sitting at home and she picks up a magazine, and in the magazine she sees a beautiful painting, a beautiful artwork, and she admires the picture. Another person actually goes to the art gallery and sees the painting hanging on the wall. And this person who goes to the art gallery is an art student. She's been studying A-level art, and she admires the painting on the wall and admires the different colours and the brushstrokes and really appreciates the piece of work, the artwork that's on the wall. A third person is a wealthy art collector, and this person comes to the gallery and buys the painting. And now this painting is on this person's private art collection in his home. And the fourth person in the analogy is the artist who painted the picture. Now all four of those people had a connection with this painting. But you'll agree with me that all four of them had a quantitatively different connection to this painting. From the very casual observer in the magazine to the artist who actually painted the picture. They're all connected in some way to the painting. But some connections are very superficial, and some connections are much more intimate. The unifying theme that I want to talk about is that the connections, the relationships that my mother made were intimate, were intense, and they became meaningful because of that. They were not superficial at all. And this is actually a theme that you find throughout Torah, throughout Jewish literature, and that's this idea of making real connections, making meaningful, lasting relationships with your kids, with your spouse, with Hashem, with people, is what I wanted to try and devote the time that we have together to talk about. So, to use the source sheet, just so it's there, the first two sources, number 1 and 2, are where I first, it's quite an obscure source, but where it first dawned on me that there is this idea that the Torah, Hashem cares about the connections we make. I won't, well maybe I don't know, we can do this inside. The first source, I can talk them through, it depends on the audience how in depth you want to do. The first source is from a Gemara in Pesachim. Now, as I said, it's a very obscure source, but what everyone knows in the room, that you're not allowed to have chometz on Pesach. It's one of the most severe prohibitions in the Torah, that the person who transgresses the prohibition of Bal Yirah, Bal Yamotzeh, you mustn't have chometz in your house, you get the most severe punishment of kores. The soul is exercised if you have chometz. So it's a very severe prohibition, which I think is well known to everyone. What I think is interesting, and this is source 1 and 2, is that from a biblical perspective, you can actually fulfill your obligation by, and this is what source 1 says, I'll read it's the last word in the second line from the top. It says, the midiraisa b'bitul ba'alma sagile. From a biblical perspective, all you have to do is annul in your mind, or actually say it. That's when we say kol chamira. You just have to annul the chometz. You just say, this chometz is not worth anything to me. So that's, from a biblical perspective, that's all you have to do. The second source, which is a run in Pesachim, one of the commentators on the Gemara, says that all you have to do on Pesach is search your house for chometz. And if you do that, you fulfill the obligation. Now, why this sounds not connected to do with anything, but why I think this is very interesting is that it actually means that on Pesach, according to the Torah, you can have a big loaf, a Grudzinski loaf of bread in your house, the whole of Pesach, and you haven't transgressed the mitzvah of Bal Yirah, Bal Yamotza. As long as you annulled it, or you searched for it, you did whatever you could, even if there is a loaf of bread in your house, you haven't transgressed the prohibition. Why? Because in your mind, you've detached importance from bread. So the Torah is telling us something here very, very subtle but important. The Torah doesn't care about whether the chometz is in your house on Pesach. It's telling you what is your attitude towards the piece of bread. The Torah says for 7 days you must detach, you must have no importance, no relationship with chometz. And from here we see a subtle idea that the Torah cares about how you relate to things. For 7 days it doesn't want you to relate to chometz. It doesn't want it to be important to you. The Torah is very bothered by what is important to you and what's not important to you. There's a very interesting, a very astute observation. So I'll give you something to think about. The Maharal of Prague says something very, very interesting. He says that there used to be, the way that trade was done in commerce was by barter. You would exchange goods, one good for another. Then came along the idea of currency, coins, pounds, sterling, dollars, yen. He said, once currency was invented, you can now walk into anybody's house and see what is important to them by the possessions they own. It used to be, when there was barter, that people would keep possessions in their house just so that, well, you keep a book in your house even if you don't want it, because you might exchange it for a pair of shoes that you do want. But now that there's currency being invented, the only reason to have an object in your house is because you want it in your house. The reason you keep it there is because you want it. So as a Maharal, and it's an interesting thing to think about. You can go into someone's house and you can tell a lot about them, if you're astute and you think about it, by what's in their house, what takes pride of place, what possessions they have. Because it shows what they're connected to, it shows what they value, because there's no need to keep that object in the house unless they want it. So that's source 1 and 2. What I'd like to do is to take this concept of what is important to you, how you relate to things, and now put it in the context of how we relate to Hashem and how we relate to people. So source 3 and 4 is in the context of how we relate to Hashem. The last year of Mummy's life, it was very surreal because obviously it was tragic, everything that was going on. But on the other hand, she was unbelievably positive, and in some ways she was more positive. I mean, she'd always been positive, but in some way, people who spent time with her that last year, it actually uplifted her in an amazing way. And people who spoke to her, I spoke to her, she said how, it sounds almost crazy, but she appreciated this opportunity. She spoke openly about how he gave her the chance to daven properly, like she'd never davened before. I've got her one of the things, everyone took whatever they wanted to take. Jackie got all the gold. I got my mum's siddur that she used, that she davened from every day. And it's got annotations throughout the siddur. She's like written notes and translated words and things that she had difficulty with. We had discussed a few issues that she found particularly difficult in davening. She found the last year amazingly uplifting. And she spoke openly and publicly about how lucky she felt she was that she was making people daven for her. She said, wow, I'm making all these people come close to Hashem. People, like I was, and people felt that it's like that's an unusual thing. You know, people didn't know how to react when somebody talks like that when they've got a serious illness. But that's how she was very public about her relationship with Hashem. I've discussed, this is an issue I've discussed actually at length with many people in the yeshivas and my rabbeim. I don't know why it is, and people have, as I said, my rabbeim have got different suggestions. But the idea of talking publicly about Hashem and relationships with Hashem, I don't know why, but people feel uncomfortable about it. I'd be with my mum, and somebody would say something, and she would turn around and say, well, have you discussed it with Hashem? And everyone would sort of shuffle in their chair a bit and say, well, that's a bit of a weird thing to say. Like, as if there's something, you know, to be embarrassed about. And the whole time I'd say to her, you know, this meeting didn't go so well today. So she'd say, well, why didn't you tell me about it? I would have davened Hashem for you before the meeting. Or did you daven Hashem before the meeting? She was very, very public about it, and she spoke about it very openly. And I'm talking personally, I found that quite strange. And I've been in yeshivas and I've grown up, and it's just not the way that people talk. And I think she's right. She's got it right. There's no reason to be embarrassed about it. What I want to show with these two sources is to demonstrate why that is the case. So, we don't know anything really about Hashem, that's the truth. All we know is what Hashem himself has revealed to us, but we can't describe Hashem. The only things we can do is how the Torah and the Gemara and the oral sources have defined Hashem for us. And everything's an analogy. You know, we talk about Hashem as a king. Okay, so we say the Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So all that means is that gives us a way to relate to Hashem. So we know that we can relate to Hashem as a king. But we also talk about Hashem as Avinu Malkeinu, our Father. There's different descriptions, different adjectives for how we relate to Hashem. One adjective that is used in many sources, which I think is not focused on enough, is sources 3 and 4. And not to, again, just to talk about them briefly, the last few words on the second line says, B'yom chasunosoi zet maton Torah. That this is quoting a pasuk. This is the last Mishnah in Tanis. That the Mishnah says that what happened on Har Sinai was that we got married. Klal Yisrael got married to Hashem. That the relationship between Klal Yisrael, between each person and Hashem, is the relationship between a husband and a wife. Now, if you stop and think about that the relationship between a person and Hashem is the relationship between a husband and a wife, I think you will discover that many ways of relating to Hashem would be different. When was the last time, I'm speaking to a room full of women, you said, I'm not going to ask my husband to do something because it's beneath his dignity. Now, I'm not going to ask him to go shopping because I only ask him to do the big things. Mommy always said, why are you reserving asking Hashem just for big things? You can ask Hashem for anything. You'd ask your husband to go shopping, presumably. I know my wife does. You'd ask your husband to go shopping. Would you ask Hashem to sort out a parking space for you? Why wouldn't you be able to do that? Why wouldn't you say, Hashem, please let me find a parking space? Now, the idea that Mum would always say to me is nothing's too small. Why do you think you only have to reserve the big life-changing things when you talk to Hashem? You can ask Hashem for everything. She would encourage me to say even the smallest thing you should be asking for Hashem for. Another, I guess, in that perspective is, do you only speak to your husband 3 times a day? Some people, they think you're lucky. It's on the day, it's on the line. It would make perfect sense to have a constant conversation. You'd be very public about it. You'd talk the whole time to Hashem. It's not just reserved for the 3 times. It's a husband and wife relationship. If you look at the source number 4, that's the Rambam, who's always known as like the radical, practical. Rambam says, this is how the Rambam describes the love that a person should have for Hashem. Says the Rambam. I'll read the whole source here because it's worth. This is my Maimonides. The case of Ki Ha'ava Haruya. What is the appropriate love that a person should have for Hashem? Hu Shi'ahav Es Hashem Ava Gedola Yisera Rabba. Person should love Hashem greatly. Azo Ad Ma'od Ashtei Nafshei Kshura Ba'avas Hashem. V'nimtza Shoget Ba'tamid. Hashem should always be on your mind. Ki'ilu Hu Choli Ahava She'ein Dasam Plum Ava Isa Isha. The love you should have for Hashem should be like the crazy love sickness you have for your girlfriend. That's all you think about is infatuation with the opposite sex. Says the Rambam, that's the love that a person should have for Hashem. In totally infatuated, that all you can think about, you have nothing else on your mind, totally lovesick for Hashem. This is the Rambam, Maimonides, who's known as practical, scientific. This is the relationship that the Torah tells us we're meant to build with Hashem. I think that was my mom's perspective. She was very public, openly spoke about it. The whole time, the last year, in a way, the Israel community, which is where she grew up, the Netanya Kehillah, that she really became part of very, very quickly. They saw this side of her it was quite incredible, really. The last year, maybe the years beforehand, how openly and publicly she would talk about Hashem. I spoke at the Leroy how she would send me emails just with the subject of Emunah, B'tachon, and Adass, just randomly throughout the day. I'm actually looking at emails since she passed away, how her constant talking about Hashem and her relationship with Hashem. And I think that in this context, that's the message we should be taking away. Moving on to the second part, which is perhaps even more relevant, is the relationship with people, with other people, with family members, with people she came across. Jackie bought this book. I think we've probably 1,000. I think we've received maybe 1,000 emails, probably more, about things that my mum did or people she touched. Or I'm not making a plug for anything here, but 3 women who I don't know during the course of Shiva from Netanya came up to me and said that because of my mother they started covering their hair. So I don't know any of them, and I've never met them before in my life. All I do know is that a person wouldn't do that based on a superficial relationship, just talking to someone. Members of my extended family told me that my mum used to send their kids birthday presents. I said to Aliza, I don't even know the names of those kids. And my mum made intimate, close relationships with people and made a real impact on people. And she did that because she cared about people and looked outside of herself. Still today, we're still getting emails and messages from people who told us stories that none of us knew during her life. It's often the way that you only find out about these things afterwards. And she touched people in real ways. She made real connections. She cared. She spoke to me a lot about. There's something they call email conversation. Right? I'm reading a book at the moment by Daniel Kahneman. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a very interesting book. I recommend it. He's actually the nephew of the Ponovitcher Rav. He's a Nobel Prize winner in economics. And he talks about something called priming, the psychological impact that the subconscious, that relationships are formed based on the subconscious, not just on he says there's 2 types of thinking. and he talks about the need for eye contact. And there's something called email conversation, is where you know when you're talking to someone on the phone and that you haven't got their full attention because they're actually sending an email at the same time that they're talking to you. So Aliza does this. Aliza, when I speak to Aliza, who in Israel, as I'm walking to the office, I'm talking to her on my mobile phone, and I'll turn my head to see something, and she'll say, "Right, what's happened?" And she's in Israel, and she senses, she knows that she hasn't got my full attention. And he describes this phenomenon. I think women are much more sensitive to this, that the idea of giving someone their full attention when you talk to them. And he talks about the importance of eye contact. My mum used to go crazy. Maybe that's one thing I'll take on. Not to look at the BlackBerry while you're talking to someone. Absolutely crazy. The importance of eye contact, writing letters, making real relationships, not the superficial. Another gem from my mum was that, I said that only again also with Aliza, about spending time with Aliza and the kids. So everything I'm saying tonight, just it goes without saying that these are all lessons that I have yet to internalise. These are all things that she taught, but haven't yet taken on. But one of the things that she always used to say was, you can forget all these books for everything. Just how to bring up children and how to talk so kids will listen. And she always used to say, forget all those books, just spend time with your kids. Just spend time with them. Spend time with your wife, take your wife out more. But what my Rob said to me, there's issues with our Balis, where you can go. So he said that there's something called mitzvah l'kayim divrei hames. There's a commandment that you have to fulfill what the person who dies, if they leave a will. So he said to me that I'm allowed to take Aliza out, because that's considered mitzvah l'kayim divrei hames, because Mum would want me to take her out more. That was one thing I didn't do. So that was what was important to her, always looking outside of herself, looking at other people, making relationships real. Look around the room, people who she touched in a real way. I can see people here. These are real relationships. You don't make these things superficially. These are things that make a lasting impression. So there's a lot to be said. I've chosen one source just to speak out this idea. This is, to my mind, it's quite a long one, but it's a very, very interesting. It's a very interesting source. It's long. I don't know whether should I read it through. Is that okay? It's worth it. So it's a story. I'll give you the sort of background. It's a story about a man who goes to visit a prostitute, and it describes what happened. So I hope that's whet your appetite a bit. So it starts again on the second line. I don't know why I keep doing that. So it starts with Maaseh ba'odam echad. Can you see that? That's on the last three words on the second line. It's a Gemara Menachos. So I'm going to read through it, translate it, and then I'm going to tell you how to read this Gemara through the way Chazal understood this Gemara in terms of relationships with people. Okay, so Maaseh ba'odam echad. So there was a story about a man, Shaya Zohir b'mitzvah tzitzis. So he was very particular, he was very careful to keep the mitzvah of tzitzis. Shama sheyesh zona b'karkei hayam, shneiteles da'adamei ois v'zohovim b'sfara. So this man heard that there was a prostitute living far away, and the amount that she took for her services was 400 gold coins. So Shigala Abam owes the Hubim. So he sent her the 400 gold coins, the Kavel Azan, and he arranged a date that they would meet. So Kishagir's man, when the allotted time came for the man and the lady to meet up, Boab Yoshav al Pesach, he came and sat by her entrance to her doorway. Nefasa Shikosa, so the lady who helped this. Probably a word for that, but the lady who helped her with her services, she opened the door and said, she said to the prostitute, she said that the man's gift cup. She said to the lady of the house, the chap who sent you the 400 gold coins, he's come. So she said, Amrohi, Ikonis. So she said, tell him to come in. So Nichnas, he came in. So we'll read this bit quickly. Hitzilei Zayin Mitis Shesh Shel Kesed Achas Shel Zahav Vein Kol Achas V'Achas Silam Shel Kesed Ve'Elyon Shel Zahav. Okay, so basically she had a very interesting bed set up, I guess is what I'm saying. She had 7 mattresses, and between each mattress was a ladder. And she was at the very top of these 7 mattresses. So he climbed up the ladders. As he was getting to the top one, so as he was getting to the top one, we're about in the middle now, halfway through this. It says, as he was climbing up, he still kept the garb on, as they say, and the sitzers hit him in the face as he was about to get onto the top mattress. Okay, so it hit him in the face, and as a result of that, he decides against going through with this transaction. And he decides to go and sit on the floor. So he goes and sits on the floor instead of the top bed. And so she comes and sits down next to him, and she says to him, Amrole, Gafa Sharomish, any manichsa achatemari ma mum isabi. She says, what's happened? Why, you paid your money, why now, it's time to fulfill the bargain, why aren't you going through with it? Did you see something disgusting in me that's preventing you from carrying on? So he says, no, I didn't see anything wrong with you, but and I mitzvah achat tzvonu Hashem Elokeinu b'tzitzis shema v'tzivka ani Hashem Elokeichem shtei pamim ani hu she'asid l'bra ani hu she'asid l'sham mitzvah. So achshav nidam milai b'dalad edim. So basically, he says, I remembered the sitzers hit me in the face. I remembered there's a prohibition of sitzers. As a result of that, I didn't go through with it. So she says to him, so I'm not going to let you leave until you tell me, Ma Shimcha, what's your name? Ma Shem Irecha, what's the name of your city? Ma Shem Rabbecha, what's the name of your teacher? Ma Shem Madrashecha, where do you learn? Where you learn Torah. And so he writes all these details down, gives them to her. And she then divides up all the money. Just going through this quickly now. The end of the story is, let's go to the end. She says, she takes the money, and she comes to the base medrash where he told her that he learned. And she said to his teacher, you see this money in my hand, one of your students gave it to me. And I now want to convert to Judaism and marry this guy. Okay? Says the Gemara at the end, the Rav said, I can see, he asked her, he see that she was genuine. And the Gemara ends by saying, the mattresses which were originally going to be used for an Avera, she converted, and the mattresses were used to fulfill the mitzvah when they got married. Okay, so it's an interesting story. But I want to share with you a way of understanding the story that I think puts into context the difference between superficial relationships and deep and meaningful relationships. And that's through the medium of tzitzis. Okay, so this bit's mine, so you can take it or leave it. But, so I would like to explain that tzitzis, the function of tzitzis, you know that on the 4 corner of garments, men put tzitzis on the 4 corner of garments. So why do they do that? Well, the Torah says you're meant to, but what's an idea we can explain behind this? So, clothes have been described as intrinsically selfish. What do I mean by that? The clothes that a person wears, and maybe I'd like to suggest, I think, that this could be why that men have the obligation of tzitzis and not women. Maybe that when a man wears clothes, he wears clothes for himself. It's a very selfish. For his own kavod, it describes his own importance, the way he dresses. In fact, this is the halacha on Shabbos. You're not allowed to carry outside, right? You're not allowed to carry in the street objects, but you're allowed to wear clothes. Why aren't clothes considered an object? Because clothes in the eyes of Chazal are you. That they're just for you. The man wears clothes. Say, hey, look, this is his uniform. It gives him a sense of honor. It's called Big Day Kavod. It could be maybe I don't know if this is true, but maybe that's why women don't, because I think maybe women wear clothes for other people, not so much for themselves. But man wears clothes for himself, to build himself up, to give himself his own collar. Says the Torah, on every clothes that has four corners, an observation is, you never find in nature a perfect right angle. Nothing's created exactly, only man makes corners, a right angle. Says Hashem that when something completely personal, when something completely selfish, you put tzitzis on it to teach you to look outside of yourself. The Gemara says that tzitzis have to be techeles, so that you remind yourself of Shemayim, and reminds you of Kiss Kavod, it reminds you of Hashem. If a person looks at tzitzis, they're on his clothes, and it tells him it's not about yourself, it's about looking outside of yourself. And that is the root of chesed. Chesed is about looking at the other person. It's about focusing what the other person lacks. That's why we put tzitzis on our clothes, to say it's not about you, it's about the other person. Life is about what you, as Mum always say, life is about what you give to people, it's not what you take. There's the givers and takers, and you have to be a giver. So that's what the tzitzis are for, to tell you to look outside yourself. So now let's look at the story. Let's see the role that the tzitzis play. Two people, a man and a woman, are coming to do a business transaction. The man has got no interest in the woman, and the woman has got no interest in the man. The man's in to get his hana, to get his benefit out of it, and she's in it to get paid. If you look at the story, we won't go through it again, he sends the money to her. It's not put in his hand, it's done through an intermediary. There's no connection between them on any level. He's doing it to see what he can get out of it, and she's doing it to see what she can get out of it. It's all about themselves. As he's climbing up the ladder, the tzitzis hit him in the face. And that's when he internalizes the lesson that life is not about for yourself, it's about the other person. He then sits down on the floor, and she sits down next to him. It's the first time she says, "What's your name?" She suddenly asks him, "What's your name?" Before, what his name was completely irrelevant. They weren't connecting one person to the other. They were just in it for themselves. Now she sits down, "What's your name? What's your teacher? Where do you learn from?" And he puts the details in her hand. He writes it down, and it's the first time they connect. They're actually connecting as people. It's no longer a superficial thing in it for themselves. Once they've internalized the lesson, it's all about what you can give to other people, and it's no longer about what you can take for yourself. Then she converts and they can get married. That's the secret of marriage. When you realize it's really all about what I can give to the other person, she realizes what she can give to him, and he realizes what he can give to her, and it's beautiful. Then the same mattresses that were going to be used for Nalvera are now going to be used for the biggest mitzvah. So I think I've used my time. So maybe just to finish, So that's always the deflating feeling. Is can't really finish. I saw, maybe according to you, one of the things that hit me when Mummy passed away, passed on, she really told me, is it's indescribable, the pain that somebody dies. I've never experienced that before. And I think first of all, I've learned that until you've experienced it, you can never empathise with someone who's been through it. So I realised that all the years when I tried to give comfort to my friends that I've never been through it before, it's just impossible to describe the agony and the pain and the constant feeling that Mummy will just walk through the door at any moment. You can't believe it's happened. And it's just so indescribable, the anguish and the pain, the finite nature of Misa. So it's really, and then you suddenly think, but wait a second, just think of the tragedy. So that's my mum. In the natural course of events, a mother will die, before a child will die. And you stop and think about the tragedies that have been in this world, when that's not the case, where children, mother and son, have died. And you suddenly stop and think, I can't cope with this. How do people ever go through those type of traumas that are just not in the natural order of events? And I don't know why, but I particularly can't get out of my mind that the lady in France the Rebbetzin in France whose husband and 2 children were murdered. When my mom died, I just always think about this woman who I haven't met, but she lost her husband and her 2 kids, just like that. And I can't cope with my mom. And she lost 2 kids and her husband. It's just indescribable. So this lady, who I don't know, but she seems to be an unbelievable lady. She's going around the world, traveling, talking. I do not know. I'm speechless. I don't know how she could possibly do that. But she's going around the world. Her emunah is, I don't know, I've never seen anything or heard anything like that. Her emunah on B'tachon, she talks publicly about Hashem and how she's grateful to Hashem and the lessons she learned. So she goes around the world traveling, talking about, she tells the following story, which many of you may know, but I think it's worth finishing the lesson. So I don't know if people know this, but I assume you've all heard about this event in Paris, this terrorist. Sandler. So she had a son, Gabriel, I think, and her husband was Jonathan. So she was there in the school when it took place. Not everyone. She saw it happen, and one of her sons, I think it's Gabriel, didn't die straight away. Her husband and 1 boy died instantly, and one of the sons didn't. His heart was still beating. So they took the boy to hospital, and she obviously went with him. And so the doctor told her that it's basically they're not going to be able to save him. He's going to die. So she says that she went into the room to say Shema with her son, and in her bag she had 2 sweets, candy, 2 sweets. So she said that there's a medrash that says that when you come into the world, you come in with your hands closed. When you leave the world, you leave the world with your hands open. So the idea, I guess, is that you come in with everything you leave. That's the medrash anyway. She said she knew the medrash, she never really meant anything to her. Anyway, this boy Gabriel, loved candy. And so did his brother. So she says that she's going to say Shema. She goes into her bag and she takes out two sweets and puts them in each hand of Gabriel's hand. And she said, one's for you and one's for your brother. Give it to your brother when you get to Shema. She says Shema with her son. And she goes out the room, she comes back in and he's died. And she looks and his hands are open and both the sweets are on the floor. And she said that she suddenly realised you can't take anything with you. You can't take sweets, you can't take anything. But what you can take, that's what I want to leave you with, is what I would say is you take the relationships, you take the connections you've made with people, the impact you've made on people, the legacy that the person leaves behind. The Masim Tovim is what you take with you. You can't take candy, you can't take all the material things in the world, but you do take look what my mom left, look at the legacy she left behind, the relationship with Hashem, the Masim Tovim, the impression you made on people. That is what you take with you. And that should really be an achama to us, to all the family, to my siblings, to my father. And my mother should be a Megat Yosha for us. And that would be the biggest chus that we learn from our legacy. We take on those lessons. We make real relationships with our family, with our spouses, with our kids, with Hashem. We make it real. That's what we take with us, the real connections. Thank you.
This beautiful, inspiring connection that I think a lot of people learn from. And that's what gave, I think, a lot of the ability to be able to attach yourself to Hashem in that way as well. Thank you very, very much for sharing yourself with us and your very, very deep ability. I'd like to ask a couple of people who would like to share some of their thoughts with us.
Hi, I just want to say thank you very much to everyone for coming, my grandma. And everyone who was at the stone setting, I'm sorry to hear. My grandma wasn't afraid of anything or of anyone. She would say whatever she wanted to whoever she wanted to at any time. The fears that most people have in their lives, of change, of meeting new people, of caring what others think, of doing and not just talking, these simply weren't stumbling blocks in Grandma Marion's life. My grandma touched so many people's lives, with a simple smile, a good word, an invitation for a cup of coffee, or offering advice about life's challenges. Most grandparents don't know their children or grandchildren's friends intimately. I, and all who knew me, have benefited in getting to know Grandma Marion and Grandpa Derek on a personal level. Whether it be because Grandma Marion was the secretary of practically every Jewish primary school in northwest London, or because her and Grandpa always took an interest in everyone's lives, invited them round to stay in their flat and to make general conversation. My friends would come over on a Shabbat afternoon and prefer to stay upstairs in order to converse with Grandma and Grandpa instead of spending time with me. Hachnasat Orchim is such a main part of my life. It has been installed deep in my subconscious due to my grandma's natural way of welcoming others into her life. There are so many lessons that I learnt from my grandma, in hindsight trying to decipher all the messages she left me, and in the future by understanding and appreciating all that she did in her life. We used to say that Grandma had far more adjectives in her vocabulary than other people. Everything was so wonderful, fabulous, lovely, darling. She could never find the right words to praise someone, to describe her positive outlook on the world, or to simply say goodbye. My grandma chose happiness. She succeeded in repelling depression and confusion, and therefore Hashem bestowed himself onto her. She saw herself as his possession to do her very best in developing herself and those around her for the greater good. Grandma believed in communication with Hashem on a one-to-one basis. She asked him for help, and with complete emunah that he alone can control everything and anything that occurs in life. She shared her aspirations, accepted every situation that was thrown at her, with love, joy, and awe. Grandma understood the difficult concept that one cannot run away from life's tribulations and trials. She chose to embrace them with a smile and a positive outlook. My grandma believed that life stood on three conditions: emunah, bitachon, and hishtadlut. If you listen carefully, you will see that this is the perfect formula for a complete life, full of silver linings and the ability to accomplish our mission on this earth and achieve our ultimate soul correction in the world to come. With true emunah, any person can transcend any natural limitation and work wonders. Hashem favors those who seek him and those who seek their purpose in life. When you believe, there can be miracles if Hashem wills it. Grandma was so lucky to achieve her mission in life after such a fulfilling time on this earth. She got the ball rolling for her descendants in the future to soar. Grandma had complete emunah, therefore Hashem smiled at her and gave her loved ones a present in her merit. Each and every one of us that knew her, respected her, cared for her, admired her, and learnt so much from her. In order to live her true emunah to a full and real belief with perfect faith that everything Hashem does is for our own good, one needs to live it. Bitachon, to trust, to be sure, in people, in God, in whatever it took. Her bitachon, that everything is for the best, was pure. She understood the full picture. Perhaps everything won't be okay in our eyes, but without a doubt it is part of God's major plan that Grandma liked to speak about and share with others. Only true tzaddikim that are so close to God can understand this concept and actually live their life based on this concept. Life is a giant jigsaw puzzle, and Grandma was that one step ahead of all of us in seeing the other pieces, not only the ones that touch her own section. It's no good saying and believing without actions. Actions speak louder than words, and nothing comes about just by willing it to be. Her hishtadlut in all her chesed projects were always to the very best. Entering 2 communities in Adass and in Netanya, and transforming them single-handedly along with support from Grandpa into places of Torah, of friendship and chesed. She had countless projects, people that she took under her wing. Her children and grandchildren were her pride and joy, and she never hesitated to show us off to everyone who knew her. She and Grandpa Derek supported all of us in everything we ever did. She was present at every dance recital, performance, ceremony, birthday party, bar mitzvah, and occasion. Even our most recent celebration, Grandma didn't miss out. She made sure she was there watching proudly from above. Grandma had the uncanny ability to make friends with everyone. From the cleaner in the shul to a waitress to a shop assistant, every single soul was just as important as the next, and each person deserved her particular time and effort. We say that each person had one tikkun in this world until they are ready to rise at the next. My grandma seemingly had so many missions in her time on this world. She fixed, improved the lives of everyone she came across, and I merited to be Marion Baum's granddaughter. It is an honour that I would always be proud of. May we all come to learn from her in our daily lives and be happy with our lot always, just as she would always want us to be.
Thanks, Rara.
Tonight, I feel both privileged and sad to be standing here in front of you. We're all here to remember Marion, Olayha Shalom, and I would like to share with you some of my thoughts and emotions about my beloved friend and Machatenis to Marion. When I think of Marion, I think of when I first met her all those years ago. She informed me that she wanted our daughter Aliza for her beloved and only son Simon. Little did I know then that once Marion put her mind to something, she usually got her way. When I think of Marion, I think of 4 Franklin Gardens, the Baum's open house. A home where all and sundry were made welcome, and even if you were absolutely sure that when you arrived you didn't have time to stay, by the time she finished you ended up staying and having a wonderful tea or coffee because Marion was always so chatty and friendly. I think about her passion for her shul, the Adass. I think about all the work that she put into her shul, her introducing welcome packs for your shul's newcomers, whatever their age. I think of her Edra Hevra, the Kadeshim, the Yom Tovim, the lunches, the Friday nights, the smachot, the bereavements. She was a part of all those events. I think about her love of Hashem, her davening, and those 3 words that were so much part of her life: Emunah, Tochen, and Hishtadlus. I think about the joy that we felt under the chuppah at Aliza and Simon's wedding. The laughter, the crying, the fun that we had preparing for it. I think about the wonderful Sheva Brachot that Marion and Derek's Edgeware friends made for us, and how welcome Mike and I always felt in Edgeware and at the Edgeware Adass. I think about her never-ending love of mankind, and how she lived her life such a simchas l'chaim, a true droit de vivre. I think of her collection of baubles and bangles and shoes and boots and clothes and hats, shaitels, and those incredible, always varnished nails. She always looked immaculate. When I think of Marion, I think about her never-ending love for her husband Derek. I think about how they were affectionately called by our children Maz and Des. When asked, why Maz and Des, our children said that Marion and Derek reminded them of Bonnie and Clyde. Absolutely inseparable. You never got one without the other. I think how proud she was of her children, Michelle and Johnny, Jackie and Michael, Aliza and Simon. I call them all her children, as her in-law children were loved and treated in exactly the same way as her blood ones. She knew so much about and cared for each and every one of her grandchildren: Ariana, Savannah, Eyal, Kiara, Daniela, Rafi, Eitan, Racheli, Shiri, Naftali, Dovi and Ricky. I think about how she made a fantastic success of her jobs at various Jewish schools in northwest London. Marion here, nothing to worry about, would be her opening line when she phoned her parents. I think about the weekend that our children, Aliza and Simon, made Aliyah. Marion and I came back from the airport. We stood hugging and kissing and sobbing in the kitchen of 55 Downage. I think about Marion and Derek's own Aliyah. It seems just like yesterday that she was sitting in my kitchen telling me that she didn't want to go to Netanya. Well, as you all know, probably for the first time in his life ever, Derek won. And they made Aliyah to Netanya, and what an Aliyah it was. In a very, very short space of time, a time in which she never complained, Marion Derek created a new chevra. But she never ever lost touch with her Edgware friends, be they in Edgware, Jerusalem, or indeed in any other part of the world. She always kept in touch. I used to get dizzy just watching and listening to her. During the Shiva, I met and spoke to people from Netanya. People who said that Marion had changed their lives, how she brought them to her shul, how she had introduced them to each other, people who had been living in Netanya for years and years and had never really spoken. Through Marion, they are now very close friends. When I think of Marion, I feel very blessed to have managed to spend quality time with her before she died. Aliza called me one day and said, "Mommy, if you still want to see Marion, come now." I ran to the airport, told Michael, phone and get me a ticket, and I'm going. It was wonderful when I saw her. "Hello, my darling Machatainstas," she said. "Sue, I want to tell you, I'm not frightened of going. I'm only frightened of the pain for the people that I will leave behind. Not a day goes by when I don't think of her." In my heart, I knew that our joint, children and grandchildren of Ramat Bet Shemesh, were safe. Any crisis, small or large, Mary and Derek were always there. I heard Rabbi Schneebold once say that in the non-Jewish world, they say that someone passed away, they are gone. In the Jewish world, we say that the Nifter, Nifteres, passes on. What does this mean? It means not only do they pass on to the Olam HaEmes, but they pass on to those that they leave behind, their traditions and their example for all of us to follow. In Marion, we have a prime example of what Rabbi Schneebold was seeking to convey with these words. Marion exemplified chesed, always performing mitzvahs whenever she could, always there offering a helping hand, always there with chachmas's orchim. These are the things that Marion has passed on for all of us to emulate. May she be a Melitz Yorisha for Derek, her children, her grandchildren, and all of Klal Yisrael. I will always miss her.
Another very close friend of Marion, Barbara Brown, who unfortunately wasn't, and so she felt more like a sister than a close friend, sent some very meaningful thoughts and words, and she's asked Marcia to read them to everybody here so we can be part of what she felt. And I think what she did, and Jackie will explain soon, she put them in a book, Sefer Zichronot, which I think Jackie, I think everybody can also, is that right, Michelle? Put their thoughts in.
This brown book.
Just first hear Barbara's words. After Marcia shares with us what Barbara sent, then I'd like to ask anyone who has, I know a couple people asked me they want to say something, anyone who has anything they'd like to say, even one sentence. You don't have to, like share something, funny, emotional, whatever. That's what we're here for, just to feel married in the group. So please do if you want to.
As a preamble, I just want to explain that Jackie...
Marcia, go a bit there because they can't see you here.
Sorry. As a preamble, I just want to explain that Jackie and the kids, or the family had... Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. The family had during the Shiva Sefer Zichronot. And Barbara was asked if she would write something in the book, but felt unable to do so at the time. But 2 weeks later, she sat down and she wrote this. I'm sorry, but after what Sue's just said, I'm very emotional. I've read this many times. I hope I can give Barbara's thoughts justice. Marion, I'm starting to miss you now. It's been too long since we had a little chat on the phone. Can't remember what we talked about. Just this and that, what we've been doing or were about to do. Or to make arrangements when we'll meet up or talk about the children and what they've been up to. It's all stopped now. Too much time has passed. We miss you so much, and it won't get better. After you died, we felt a sense of relief. Relief for you, because over the previous few weeks your quality of life had deteriorated until you were no longer the person we knew and loved. And yes, relief for your family, who'd worked so hard to keep you comfortable in your own home. Wherever you are now, it is our fervent wish that you are at peace, a peace you so justly deserve. So what are we left with? Memories, so many memories. Harvey over the last 68 years, and for me, just 50 of them. We lived so close and our lives were so intertwined. How many memories can we talk about without boring everyone who reads this? So I'll talk about some in no particular order, just as they pop up into my head. In 2002, when Alex and Harvey were involved in that terrible road accident, who did I call first? You, of course. All day long, you and Derek stayed with us in the hospital. And in the evening, Derek schlepped all the way to St George's in Tooting to help me, whilst you made sure Harvey was okay at home after the ordeal. That brings back memories of the night your mother died. How young we all were then. But you were controlling the situation, making sure everyone else was coping. To happier times, the night before Simon's bris, when you reprimanded Harvey for taking out the rubbish so late. Was it 10 or 11 o'clock? Because he should have been safely tucked up and resting for his most important task the next morning. The trip you and I made on the train to Manchester to visit Jackie and Karen at university. You thought I was quite stingy not wanting to pay a fare in excess of £50 rather than wait an hour and pay less than half. Derek sorted it and we went for a coffee near Watford Station and caught the later train. The time we took you out for dinner for Derek's 70th and you both dropped the bombshell, you were going on Aliyah. Who would have believed it? And after the initial trauma sorting out Auntie Fella, you settled so well into your life in Netanya. Even though we weren't round the corner and it required a car journey to visit each other. You made new friends, as did we, and you were so happy meeting up with your new chevra. The four of us were so different and yet so similar. Our lives touched so frequently because we were so closely connected, historically and geographically. When we disagreed, it didn't matter. Our friendship was so deep that it could never be broken. You so loved your trips to Jerusalem and even managed to get us to the Kotel, which was the one and only time we've been there since we've lived here. Your generosity was legendary. You found it so much easier to give than to receive. That sometimes caused problems, but it didn't matter. We knew you too well to let it bother us. How excited you were when we told you of Alex's impending arrival, especially when the time came to tell our other friends about our rather big secret, and how you adored him when he did arrive, and the interest you have shown in his development and achievements. You loved all our children, but somehow he was just that little bit more special, probably because all the others, yours and ours, were pretty grown up by the time he was born. Even Simon was nearly bar mitzvah. Your children have a special place in our hearts, just as ours had in yours. We watch them now together with Derek and wonder how they will ever manage without you. But we know that they will. Even if the pain doesn't go away, they'll be all right, because they have to. Your grandchildren loved you so much. You and Derek were such hands-on grandparents. Now they only have the memories and the photos, and that will have to do. You shouldn't have gone so soon. We had so much more fun to have together in our retirement. You so much enjoyed eating out, especially with all those restaurants and Emek to visit. But it's not for us to decide who goes and when. You had the enduring faith that whatever would be was for the best. And at this time we can only hope that your steadfastness was the right way to go, as this is the rock we can cling to when we remember and miss you. With love and affection, your brother Harvey and Barbara.
Sorry, that was very good. It was Marion because for me, Joshua first sang hymns in Iraq. In those days it was sung at the end of Shabbat, and not many ladies were in shul that early, but Marion was. She watched my children grow and blossom and always shared my pride in their achievements. When Clara got married 3 years ago in Jerusalem, it was Marion, together with Barbara, who made not only the first shaver bracha for Clara and Ali, but made this the first shaver bracha which they made together in Israel, a memory which I will always cherish. I invited Marion and Derek to have dinner with us the night before their Aliyah flight to Israel. Of course, I had to cook a very English meal, this being their last supper, and what could be more English than fish and chips with peas and ketchup? Little did I realise that this was their favourite meal. It was a very special evening of reminiscing. I last saw Marion in February when she made a huge effort to travel to Jerusalem with Derek, and together with Barbara and Harvey we met for lunch. Despite her illness, she was beautifully dressed and made up with her trademark matching earrings and necklaces. Her warmth and friendliness are qualities which I will always miss.
We had such fun doing the lunches when we started. I remember Marion, Rachel and Marion kept us going all day. And she was just always there. She was always helping me and doing everything she possibly could. She was always going up to see how the children were. And her hospitality packs, she put us to shame. She was wonderful. Absolutely.
Yes,
I met Marion when I first came to Edgware, and she introduced me to her young daughters at the time. She was very welcoming. Last year I was on Kibbutz Lavi, and she was in the hotel, and I was there for a sleeper, and I went to see her. I would not have known there was anything wrong. She was dressed immaculately. She couldn't do enough for me. She made me share her meal. Jackie was there with her daughter, was it?
All of them. Yeah, we were all.
Yeah, they were all
Simon
there.
was there as well.
But she, she just wouldn't leave us, and we had a wonderful time, and it's something to treasure, that memory.
Whenever we felt they were the most special friends.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I stayed with Marion after David died. She was fantastic. I stayed with her in Israel. She took me all over the place. I went to Jackie's house. She was just, that was the time when she actually went, she got ill. Went to see Dr. Glassman.
Yes, Dora. Speak loudly because after using their words, what can we say? Marion is a very special person. She certainly gave a lot. And we have very fond memories. Barbara, Marion, Savannah, Liam and I think for many, many years we used in the room. We met every Shabbat afternoon without fail at the India's house. And we had really quality time. And the memories of those Shabbatot something that will always stay with us, because we had some fun. We used to argue, we didn't agree what Barbara said was quite right. Sometimes we used to fall out. How can you say this and how can you say it? It was me and it was just lovely, wasn't it, Leona? It was like one family together, 4 women, and we were all at one with each other, although we were all very different people and we had very different ideas, political ideas and whatever else. But I just wanted to share that those memories will never go. They were for all of us every Shabbat for many, many, many years.
I'll just share my first and last encounter with Marion. The first time I met Marion was 22 years ago. My husband and I came to the shul
for our sort of trial Shabbos. I was a Rebbetzin, but he was very young at the time, and I walked into shul and everybody looked me up and down and turned their heads away. I just wanted the earth to open up. I thought, do I look okay? Are my clothes are right? Is my shape okay? Am I wearing the right thing? Really very, very nervous. And no one said a word, and I don't blame anyone, didn't know what to say. And Marion bounces up and says, "Oh, hello, I'm Marion. Let me introduce you to everybody." And off she went saying, "This is Faggy," and within 5 minutes I relaxed. And that was just, I just never ever forgot that, because, and that never changed, because she was always that friend that just made you feel really, really comfortable. And the last conversation was just before Pesach, and I'd phoned Derek to see how he was. Well, that was the second to last, and he said, "I've got a surprise for you." And I got Marion on the phone, we had a long chat. And then I phoned her a week later, and she'd already gone home for Pesach. And she said, "Did you realise how ill I was?" So I said, "Yeah, Marion, but I'm not anymore, I'm fine now." "Of course, Marion, it's all okay, it's all going to be great now." And that was Marion. It's always positive, it's always, the sun always shone around Marion, and around everybody else as far as she was concerned. Everybody was wonderful, and she just felt that life was a celebration. And that's why we shouldn't go home depressed. I think we should learn something from it and feel invigorated to even take one tiny little aspect of her life and just even smile at the next person. Even that would be amazing. To incorporate Marion into our lives. So thank you all very much for coming, and Ruthie's just going to say, to round off the evening,
So I just want to say, as Peggy asked me, both of things. I think the big thank you should go to Marion for being all our friends, a wonderful mother, grandmother, and, wife, everything. Marion was only good. I won't say anymore because I think photo it's too personal. But thank you for Rebbetzin Faggy Lieberman for arranging the evening. Thank you to Marion again for thinking of us all these years. And thank you for Jackie, Michelle, Simon, Ariana and Daniela to come all the way to be with us. Thank you.
Okay.
and thanks again, Myra, for your home. I really appreciate it.